Back to the Future. The feel-good, time-travelling, incestuous fantasy adventure that America didn't know it needed in 1985. The story that inspired countless other feel-good, time-travelling and incestuous adventures alike. Yeah, we are looking at you, Rick, Morty, Jamie and Cersei. It's the story of a teenage boy who, through a series of what can only be described as plot conveniences, ends up in the past and must get his parents to bone. Because, you know, the cornerstone of any healthy teenage experience is helping your dad smash your mum before she smashes you first. Nothing weird here, folks. Blame it on your dirty, dirty mind. Back to the Future is a timeless classic that's aged like Lenny Kravitz, or in this case, a DeLorean with a flux capacitor that's been left in the sun too long. Marty McFly, the original chosen one before Keanu Reeves learnt how to dodge bullets the same way he dodges acting range. Marty travels back in time to the 1950s, because who wouldn't want to relive the good old days of segregation, polio, and poodle skirts? Let's take a moment to appreciate Doc Brown, the white-haired, wild-eyed scientist played by Christopher Lloyd as Doc Brown, the original crazy scientist. Think of him as a cross between Elon Musk and a Sesame Street character who sleeps on Sesame fucking Street. This nutcase somehow convinced everyone that it's totally fine for a 17-year-old to hang out with a mad scientist who lives in a plutonium-filled mansion. He was Michael Jacksoning before Michael Jackson. You have to wonder about Doc's neighbours. Did anyone in Hill Valley ever think to question why the town's most unhinged man was constantly asking how he could get to Sesame Street and acquire a little more enriched uranium? But don't worry. This is the unhinged 80s, where all you need is a DeLorean, some Libyan terrorists, and a bit of plutonium to spice things up. But seriously, this movie is a masterclass in storytelling, if you can look past the incest attempts. It's a beautifully crafted tale of time travel, adventure, and the consequences of messing with the space-time continuum. Just ask the grandfather paradox. It's a real party pooper. And then there's Marty McFly, played by Michael J. Fox, the coolest kid with the tightest jeans and the most feathered hair that 1985 had to offer. Marty's got it all. He's like a cross between a young Tom Cruise, pre-Scientology days, and Robert Pattinson, if he knew how to smile. He's a rock star with a skateboard and an Oedipus complex no one wants to address. But don't worry about Marty. He's just doing normal teenage things, like being flung 30 years into the past and making out with his own mum. Yep, you read that right. Young McFly, the ultimate fish out of water, or in this case a skateboarder out of the 50s, travels back in time to the 1950s, where he must navigate a world without social media, memes, or the Hawk 2 girl. It's like being stuck in a never-ending loop of the Twilight Zone without the eerie narration. Our boy Marty ends up in 1955, where his mother, played by a disturbingly enthusiastic Leah Thompson, immediately develops a crush on him, taking the term family ties to a whole new level. Cue the uncomfortable laughter as the film dips its toes into what some might call very questionable content. Or what would have made a great unnecessary storyline to a porn scene if Mia Khalifa hadn't retired. But for now, we will generously refer to as a quirky plot twist. Michael J. Fox shines as Marty, bringing a perfect blend of charm, wit, and 80s hair metal swagger. Meanwhile, Marty's dad, George McFly, played by Crispin Glover, stands tall as the godfather of simps, the human embodiment of a limp handshake, probably the only sucker on the planet who seriously needs to buy an Andrew Tate course. A man who makes you want to simultaneously root for him and give him a wedgie. He's a peeping Tom, a total nerd, and somehow the hero we're all supposed to love. Sure, George learns to stand up to Biff, a guy whose only job seems to be professional bully. And sure, he knocks him out with a single punch. But let's not forget, this entire saga unfolds because George was too busy spying on women in trees instead of, I don't know, purchasing an Andrew Tate course. Speaking of Biff, let's not ignore the movie's true genius, giving us a villain who's basically the living embodiment of every high school bully trope combined. He's like if all the bad jocks from every John Hughes film were genetically fused into one greased-up behemoth. He's got the brain power of a rock and the morals of, well, an 80s movie villain. Special shout out to Darth Vader. Naturally, the whole trying to essay your future wife thing is totally forgiven because he ends up waxing cars in the new and improved McFly family timeline. Character development? Fuck me! Who needs it when you have humiliating jobs to hand out? Lest we forget the time travel logic itself, which is more convoluted than a conspiracy theorist's vision board. We're asked to believe that changing a single moment in 1955 somehow leads to Marty inventing rock and roll, teaching his dad how to be an alpha male, and single-handedly revolutionizing skateboarding. All while making sure he doesn't accidentally erase himself from existence. Oh, and did we mention he teaches Chuck Berry about rock music by plagiarizing Chuck Berry? That's right. Back to the Future is also the definitive story of how a white kid from the suburbs invented rock and roll. Thanks, Hollywood, for inventing Eminem. In all seriousness, Back to the Future is an 80s masterpiece, a movie so absurdly brilliant that it dares to ask, what if time travel could fix your parents' marriage, teach your dad to be a pseudo-MMA fighter, and make you a guitar god? It's the ultimate fantasy for any teenager who's ever wondered what it'd be like to time travel to the past, make a mess of their parents' lives, and still come out the coolest kid in town. It's the movie that made DeLoreans cool, made us believe in flux capacitors, and taught us that, yes, if you ever find yourself at the Enchantment Under the Sea dance, make sure your mum doesn't get boned by you. Good advice for any decade. In conclusion, Back to the Future is a gem. A bizarre, wonderful gem that combines time travel, teenage angst, and some Freudian nightmares all wrapped up in a rock and roll, skateboard riding, lightning striking bow. The script is tighter than a pair of skinny jeans on Lizzo, with a narrative that's feistier than a Game of Thrones plotline. It's like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube blindfolded while being attacked by a swarm of bees. Challenging, yet mesmerizing. You can't help but love it. Awkward family ties and all. And if it taught us anything, it's that you need to subscribe to this goddamn channel. And the best way to solve all your problems is to drive 88 miles per hour and hope for the best. Oh, and one more thing. If you ever find yourself in a situation where you need to travel back in time, just remember, don't mess with the space-time continuum, don't eat the yellow snow, and for the love of all things holy, don't invest in MySpace. Now, where's my flux capacitor?